welcome back to Dolarizacion en Acción. I want to wish you all a happy new year, happy 2021. Hopefully it'll be better than 2020 for all of us. I would like to apologize for not posting any content lately. We've been really busy closing the year, finishing some projects, and also doing what I'm here for, which is to present you with the book Comercio Exterior y Convergencia Económica en Dolarización, that is foreign trade and economic convergence in dollarization. Unfortunately, the book is in Spanish, so my purpose today is just to let you know that the book exists and that if by any chance you know Spanish well enough to read it, then you might find it useful if you have any research going on or any questions about dollarization. The book is available on Amazon. You can find it there. If you have Kindle Unlimited, it's completely free. If not, it will depend on which account you have and where you're located. It's a digital book, so you should be able to buy it anywhere in the world. We do this book because mostly the problem was that there are no academic texts to study dollarization. We have mentioned this several times before. There are no classes on dollarization, there are no courses on dollarization, and we believe this is a big gap that needs to be filled. In that sense, this book is different from other dollarization books. It's not like there are no dollarization books, it's just that this is not an analysis of dollarization from one perspective or another. I don't take a look at the specific industries, or I don't take a look at a specific area of the economy and compare it against the time when the country was dollarized and when it was not, and then come up with a conclusion. That is not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is to group all the theories, all the economic theories that relate to dollarization and apply it in a context. And in this context, we have foreign trade and economic convergence. That's what we're doing in this particular book. But these are universal theories. This is not the foreign trade reality of a single country, even though we use Ecuador as an example. But the point here is that whoever reads this is not going to learn about the foreign trade of Ecuador. The person is going to read and learn about the mechanics of dollarization in a setting related to foreign trade and economic convergence, and that's totally different. We have concept, we have that's why we are using a phenomenology, because that's what we want to use as a method to do our epistemological contribution, if you want to put it that way. That's also why we're going to be using this book as a base for all the coming 2020 videos. Everything is going to be related to the concept that we explain in the book, so you may expect to see that here. And also, it's going to be a part of a collection that will expand in the coming years. In 2021, we expect to release another book, and hopefully by 2022, we'll have the next part. So that's what we're doing. Content, which is the methodology. I'm sorry, I didn't translate that word into English. I meant to say contents. So the methodology is using economic phenomenology. This is a very helpful tool to learn about economic phenomena. We consider dollarization to be one of them. We don't do a lot of contributions to phenomenology itself. We just use it. So we're just applying it in this book. So I'm not going to delve too much on it. I'm going to skip right out to the next point, and that is the first part of the book deals with the general importance of foreign trade for economic development, for the economic development of countries that are in general terms poor. The second part is I had the chance of doing something that I like, which is comparative economics. We did one between the gold standard and dollarization. Is a relatively long chapter, and yet it still skims through the surface because both systems are really complicated, but it gives us a really good idea about how dollarization should work, and at the same time it sets up the stage for the next phase of this analysis, which is, as I said before, the book about financial systems. The third point is foreign trade dollarization 20 years later. We're taking advantage of the fact that Ecuador has been dollarized for over 20 years. So we assume that we're doing this analysis in the long term, giving enough chance for all the resources of the production function to rearrange themselves towards a new equilibrium given by dollarization. We have a study case about whether Ecuador should sign or not a free trade agreement with the United States. And actually, the study case, the case study, is going to be the next video that we do. And the last one, the last point of the book is the economic convergence and dollarization. So let's talk a little bit about all the parts of the book. The importance of foreign trade for economic development. Here we have growth models. So we have different growth models. A growth model where growth is based on exports, another one where growth is based on imports, or two models are where imports are based on growth or exports are based on growth. So these changes depending on the conditions of every country. Also, another conclusion from this side is that the South-South trade is getting more important and growing faster than the South-North trade. Like Ecuador to the United States will be South-North, but Ecuador to China is South-South. So that is important to keep an eye on. And those countries that wish to develop must link themselves to global supply chains. The way to develop your economy, especially if you need to develop an export-oriented economy like the one that Ecuador will need as a dollarized country, uh, the goal shouldn't be to try to export to another country directly, but rather to join a global supply chain that has the economic scale to demand enough products and enough production from the country as to be socially beneficial, creating jobs, transferring technology, transferring capital, etc. Finally, we do a little explanation of import substitution because this is something that keeps coming up when we talk about growth models based on foreign trade. We feel that import substitution sometimes is very misunderstood, so we decided to talk a little bit about it so we could clarify why it happened and what was its impact. As I said before, that chapter that I really like, comparative economics between gold standard and dollarization. Basically, the first part is to differentiate between what is a specie money versus fiat money. Um, to understand that only foreign trade can sustain dollarization because, again, we mentioned before the financial system, but when a country dollarizes, usually it's because they have a weak financial position. It will be weird, it will be hard to have a weak financial position if you had a financial system that was strong. Usually it means that it's not. When the country dollarizes voluntarily, usually it's because they have a weak financial system. Also, another conclusion from this chapter is that dollarization is a neo-mercantilistic economic system. And what that means is that it doesn't discriminate against imports. And it also doesn't have a bias against exports. And also, the last point in that sense about being neo-mercantilistic is that it doesn't use military force in negotiations or foreign trade, like some powers in the mercantilistic and gold standard times did. Foreign trade dollarization, 20 years later, what we have here is dollarization is not just a monetary reform, but also a trade reform. Uh, as predicted by Ricardo, when you have a trade reform, you will have more trade openness. This happened in Ecuador, especially when the prices of oil were really, really high. Ecuador had foreign trade openness of about 60%. Um, what happened was that the prices of oil fell, and now we are pretty much back to where we were in 2000. But still, there's a chance that Ecuador will actually open to a point where it could be socially damaging. As predicted by Smith, we are seeing export specialization. The clusters in Ecuador, the traditional export products are the ones that are growing faster They are increasing their export amounts both in price and volume. And also, as predicted by Hes Caroline, the country exports its endowments, whatever is more abundant in the country. So we export agricultural products because we have good agricultural land. We export minerals, oil because we have a lot of that. And we export a lot of fisheries because we also have a lot of that. Okay. Finally, we have to pay attention to economic complexity. We're probably going to be doing a video about it, but the economic complexity explains a lot of what's coming up next in the case study. Okay, first of all, we are not against a free trade agreement with the anchor country. The anchor country of Ecuador is obviously the United States, but it must be done correctly to avoid the mistakes of Chile, Colombia, Peru. Economic complexity was very likely the biggest mistake between Chile, Colombia, Peru, and the United States, because the United States is one of the countries that manufactures some of the most complex products on earth, meaning that the elasticity of demand is really low. And whereas Chile, Colombia, Peru, they pretty much export to the United States many things that come from other countries like Argentina, China, Mexico, whatever. So the exports of Chile, Colombia, Peru are very elastic. The exports of the United States are highly inelastic. The result was obviously what happened, a trade balance that is highly negative for Chile, Colombia, and Peru. And this could repeat for Ecuador as well. We have not done in this country the required analysis, meaning J-curves, Laffer curve, gravity equation. And what is funny is that there's research from an American institution using the J-curve, and they determined that for 14 countries that they analyzed, it wasn't convenient to sign a free trade agreement with the United States because of what I said before, the elasticity of the exports and the complexity that they have. Uh, we haven't done that in Ecuador. We have to bring even the analysis that help us make the decision. We still have to bring that from outside, from abroad. That makes no sense. Um, Our proposal is for a holistic deal. Holistic means that the end product is larger than its parts, and this holistic deal will include seniors as well. We speak about seniors in one of the papers that we had, and we also speak about it in one of the videos that we're posting here. So, on the side of economic convergence, every economic reform must have the intent to generate growth for the country that implements it. I mean, there's no reason why you will do an economic reform if your goal was not to create economic development and hopefully convergence. Convergence to what? Convergence means that dollarized countries reaching the same standard of living as the anchor country. Now, this is not happening. This is probably not going to happen, but in theory, this is what should happen. Dollarization has contributed somewhat to this purpose, but not completely. There's still a lot to do. There's still a long way to go. So that's one of the points in the book. But what is interesting to see is that it has taken away growth development options about knowledge and technology. There, in the book, we comment about ways of transferring technology from developed countries towards developing countries, and some of those ways are no longer applicable under a dollarization regime. So that means that there is less possibility for a country like Ecuador or a dollarized country to grow and develop based on this regime. The hope in this case is something that is called club convergence. That is not our theory, that's a development theory, but it relates pretty well to what's happening with Ecuador and other dollarized countries. That's the end of our video. I want to thank you for your attention, and I want to tell you that even though the book is in Spanish, if you are doing some research on dollarization, if there's something in the book that might be of your interest, please check it out. You can take a look at it in Amazon.com. Also, in the preview, you're going to see the index of the book, so you're going to be able to see exactly what it has. Hopefully, your understanding of Spanish is good enough to see what the topics are, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have about this subject. Again, we hope to translate it into English, but it won't be at least for another 2 years, maybe three, because we are working on the other books of the series, and we are probably not going to have time to translate it before we're done with that. If you like this video, please click like, subscribe, and please follow us any way you can. Thank you very much.